Hi everybody, this is Stephanie Nelson from Razzle Dazzle Rabbitry Yarns LLC. Today we're going to talk about what we do with our raw merino fleece. This came from Chaotic Farms and it is from Allison Unger. We have our fleece on the floor, we spread it all out, we take different sections apart, we flip it over, you can tell there's a color difference from one side to the other, and we're just checking for vegetable matter and we're checking for second cuts. So second cuts are the pieces of wool that I'm pulling off, and this fleece really did not have a lot of second cuts. It really didn't have a lot of vegetable matter. Here's a picture of what a second cut would look like close up. And this is in comparison to the actual lock, which is longer. So we have the fleece on our living room floor. We're just picking out any little pieces that we can find, and I'm being very deliberate with it. The fleece is staying together very well. That's something that you want to pay attention to. So there should be, your fleece should not just crinkle apart. It shouldn't be difficult to pull apart. You shouldn't have little pieces like this. You shouldn't have a ton of second cuts. For this fleece, you want to pay attention to, for all fleeces that you purchase, you want to pay attention to if there's any smells. You want to use all of your senses. So you shouldn't smell anything. You shouldn't smell mothballs. You should not smell cat urine. You should not smell mold. Your fleece should be dry. You should be able to feel the lanolin in a merino fleece. There are going to be some pieces of your fleece kind of closer to the tips that might be a little bit harder than the rest of your fleece. This is an example of when you're pulling the fleece apart, what it would look like. And you can see the different pieces of fiber that are clinging together in all of the locks. These are the tips. You can't really see a lot of debris in the tips. So we're just looking for vegetable matter. We're pulling it apart, and we're making sure that there's also no signs of various bugs such as wool moths. We don't want to find any larvae. We don't want to find any live or dead moths. When we're looking at it, this is an example of great crimp. It should be able to pull apart. That's an example of a tip that's a little bit hard, has a little bit of matter on it, that'll just wash right off. And you notice that the tips did not break off easily. So when you have your fleece, you just want to pay attention, make sure that if you pull on the tips a little bit, they shouldn't just crack off easily in your hands. So before we even set the fleece on the ground, something that's important to note is you want to weigh your fleece. So when you buy a fleece, it should say, for example, how much the fleece weighs. If you are buying a 4-pound fleece, you should get your fleece home. Your fleece should weigh 4 pounds. The maximum variation that I would be comfortable with is a 1/4 pound, and because there's different climates, there's different humidity, there's just differences in scales. So accounting for maybe the fleece comes from a more humid climate, it travels and it loses a lot of the humidity, it loses a lot of the moisture, that will lose weight in your fleece. And if you're buying something like a 4-pound fleece and you weigh it and it's 3.75 pounds, that's the maximum I would allow for a difference. If there's a bigger weight difference than that, then it's time to contact the seller. A good seller is going to give you exact amount or more wool than what they sold it for. So for example, if you bought a 4-pound fleece, a good seller is going to give you 4 pounds of fleece or a little bit more than 4 pounds of fleece. So when you're going through the thought process is we are going to get these, we're checking it all out, making sure everything's the way we want it to be, making sure it's a good fleece, matches the description. And this was an awesome fleece. This was a really, really good fleece. It's just very beautiful. It was really fun to pick apart. And this takes 15 minutes. This whole process of looking at the purchase, getting any noticeable vegetable matter or any noticeable second cuts out just takes 15 minutes. And after this, what we do is we simply put it back in the plastic bag with the business card identifying who it's from and how much and what it is. And shortly after that, we start processing further along. We start processing our fleece for carding, which means we're going to wash this fleece in the future. We are going to card this fleece, and we're going to blend it with German angora, and we are going to spin this fleece in the future. But feel free to write any questions below about how we start processing our merino fleeces. Thanks for watching. And what you're going to see right here, it may have looked like I was picking out a lot of things, but I wasn't.